This is USVI News, your Virgin Islands connection.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us for USVI News. I'm Emily Matson. We begin today with details of a tropical depression which could affect the territory in the coming days. Tropical Depression 7 has formed over the tropical Atlantic, located roughly 1,000 miles east-southeast of St. John. That's according to NOAA. The main concern for Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands is rain, with 4 to 6 inches of rain expected for eastern and southeastern Puerto Rico, with up to 2 to 4 inches in the Virgin Islands. Strong winds are likely with the system mostly in and around shower activity. Meantime, FEMA is urging preparedness ahead of this tropical system, asking Virgin Islanders to take necessary steps to make sure they're prepared and ready. And Joey will have many more details in his full weather forecast coming up in just a bit. On St. Croix, Virgin Islands police have charged a man in connection with an officer-involved shooting earlier this week. 52-year-old Warren Freeman is facing charges including attempted murder, assault, and interfering with an officer's duties. Monday night around 10 p.m., officers responded to Clifton Hill for reports of a mentally ill man who was naked and making threats to neighbors and was in a rental Jeep that was overdue. Officers showed up with a rental company employee to get the vehicle. When officers approached the parked vehicle, though, police say they tried several times to get Freeman out of the Jeep, but he rolled up the window and reversed down an embankment, hitting a police cruiser. Officers say he then sped forward toward the officers. That's when an officer fired his weapon, hitting the Jeep. Nobody was hit. The vehicle was forced to a stop, and police arrested Freeman at the scene. A Christiansted man is arrested in connection with a deadly vehicle accident last year. 45-year-old Kai Jackson is charged with involuntary manslaughter, negligent homicide by vehicle, and reckless endangerment. Police say back on July 7th of last year, around 3 o'clock in the morning, officers responded to a two-vehicle head-on crash on Orange Grove Road. That's near the old Dunstan's Episcopal School. 35-year-old Cito Martin was rushed to the hospital where he died from his injuries. And this week, detectives from the Traffic Investigations Bureau arrested Jackson for allegedly causing the deadly accident. He's now free on bond as the case moves forward in court. Government figures this week confirmed what most consumers already knew. Inflation isn't easing. Inflation rose more than expected in August as rising shelter and food costs offset a drop in gas prices. Americans are suffering as the average household is now spending $460 more a month to buy the same goods and services as they did last year. It comes as both political parties are making their case ahead of the midterm elections in November.
As stubbornly high inflation stretches Americans' budgets thin, a new report out Tuesday shows inflation continues to hurt Americans. Just one reason why VI Governor Albert Bryan says addressing wages owed to government employees for retroactive pay is so crucial right now.
Lots of money being distributed by the administration because we are aware of the incredible price of inflation and how much it has risen over the last couple of months especially. I was shocked when I picked up a pack of thighs there in one of the grocery stores, and a family pack of thighs used to cost like $12. It was $37. And I know you're feeling it too.
In the month of August, overall inflation was 8.3% higher than 1 year ago, while the Consumer Price Index edged up 0.1% since July. Stocks fell sharply on the news.
These are not good numbers at all.
The Federal Reserve has been trying to quickly cut inflation with a series of interest rate hikes. But while the overall inflation rate has been trending downward the past 2 months, analysts say it's not moving quick enough.
Certainly, consumers and the Federal Reserve were looking for a bigger slowdown in inflation after all the rate increases that we've already had.
A sizable drop in gas prices in August was offset by increases in food, new cars, and shelter.
You can't hardly afford food. I mean, it's gone crazy.
President Biden touts the recently passed climate and health care law, which he insists will reduce inflation in the long term.
We're going to lower prescription drug costs, lower health insurance costs, lower energy costs for millions of families.
Republicans squarely blaming Democrats for a series of spending bills they say are fueling inflation.
Democrats' policies are sucker punching American families every time they set foot in the checkout line.
The economy top of mind from the Capitol to the kitchen table just 2 months before the midterm elections.
And analysts say this week's inflation report all but guarantees the Federal Reserve will substantially hike interest rates again next week. We'll keep you posted. Now to the latest on the death of Queen Elizabeth II as the country says farewell to the Queen. Queen Elizabeth's coffin has arrived in Westminster Hall following a historic procession from Buckingham Palace Wednesday morning. The late monarch will lie in state until her funeral on Monday. Ian Lee reports from London.
Queen Elizabeth left Buckingham Palace for the last time today in a historic procession toward Westminster Hall. Britain's new king led the solemn journey behind the horse-drawn gun carriage with his siblings and sons, Princes William and Harry, the royal family's grief on public display. Massive crowds lined the streets across central London to honor the Queen's 70-year reign. The Queen's coffin is draped with a royal flag and topped with the crown she wore for her coronation in 1953. Elizabeth II will lie in state for the next 4 days. Some camped out for days to be among the first to pass her coffin.
She has that magic about her, much more than monarchy. She's an icon of icons.
Seems like the right thing to do, you know, being British, and that was my Queen.
The Queen's state funeral will be held here at Westminster Abbey. It's also where she married the love of her life, the late Prince Philip, and it's also where she was crowned Queen.
This is the end of a remarkable era, and it's farewell to a remarkable lady.
A choir sang as part of the service for the Queen's arrival in Westminster Hall. As many as 1 million people are expected to wait in a miles-long line to say their farewell to their Queen.
Amazing. And the Queen is being mourned well beyond Great Britain. She was also the official head of state in 14 other nations, including many here in the Caribbean. And for some, the monarchy carries powerful memories, though, of a painful past. Carrie Sanders continues a series of reports from Jamaica.
In former British colonies around the world, flags at half-staff, including in India, once part of the sprawling British Empire.
I remember her in such a way that she's just like our mother's figure.
The Queen often visited Britain's colonies and former colonies. Today, there are 14 Commonwealth realms where the King is still recognized as the head of state, including here in Jamaica.
Are you mourning the Queen's death?
No.
No, because?
No. Her passing is regrettable, but she's not that close to us for us to be mourning.
Jamaica historian Cliff Hughes says this country's beautiful shores hold an ugly past, slavery. The enslaved forced to the West Indies by the Royal African Company. They harvested sugar, known as green gold.
It built England, it built the streets, it built the big businesses.
That's the value of sugar at the time.
Yes.
The new king, Charles III, now inherits that legacy.
When slavery was finally abolished, those who were the enslavers were paid 20 million pounds, which was 40% of Britain's annual budget.
And how much were the slaves themselves who were now free given?
Not 1 cent.
Which is why reparations remain a hot topic. When the now Prince and Princess of Wales visited Jamaica in March, there were protests and demands for an official apology. Some now hope that comes from the new king. Under the court system here, which mirrors England's, if there were an official apology, that could well open the door to reparations.
And as we've been reporting, it's certainly mixed reaction in the Caribbean. Coming up in just a bit, we'll show you how the Bahamas welcomed the new head of state with an elaborate ceremony. One young well-wisher appeared overcome with joy after having the chance to shake hands with both King Charles III and Queen Consort Camilla on Tuesday in Northern Ireland. Take a look. Footage broadcast from Charles and Camilla's visit to Hillsborough Castle showed them both shaking hands with a boy among a group of school children. Charles shook the boy's left hand, and shortly after, Camilla shook his right. The boy stared at his hands and showed them to his classmates as the royal couple continued to shake hands with the crowd. 73-year-old Charles is traveling to the 4 parts of the United Kingdom before the funeral of his mother, Queen Elizabeth II, on Monday. How overcome with emotion he was.